Hello, everyone. You are very welcome to this panel event on thinking differently about autism. We are live. Hello, Jan from Portland, Oregon. Thank you for joining us at 11 p.m. And Charles, thank you for joining us from Australia. We've got people from Bangalore, from Bristol, from Sydney. You're all very welcome. My name is Aidan Healy. I'm the CEO of an organization called Lexic, which is a psychological consultancy focusing on autistic inclusion and neurodiversity inclusion based in the UK in Ireland. I'm also the campaign director of Neurodiversity Celebration Week, and Lexic is working in partnership with the founder of Neurodiversity Celebration Week, Sienna Castellan, who I suppose really was the visionary and the creator behind these panels today. First of all, just before we get on with our panel, let me just start with some housekeeping. We are live on Zoom webinar because we're configured as a webinar. That means we cannot see you, we cannot hear you, neither can anyone else, so please do make yourselves comfortable. This is a 90-minute event and we will run straight through without any intervals. This event is being recorded and we will send you a copy of the recordings afterwards to the email in which you registered for the event. Please do also share nice comments, your reactions, your story, where you're from in the chat. Some of the panelists will be reading the chat throughout the session and we really appreciate hearing from you. I will also say the chat is being moderated, so if you are unkind, if you are disrespectful to our panelists or others, you will be muted quite quickly. And we also have Georgie and Chloe from Lexic in the chat who may interact with you. And as I said, after the event, we'll send you a follow-up email with some links to people's websites, their social media handles, and so on and so forth. So just to give you a brief bit of background on the event, April is a time of year that marks kind of a number of key dates in the autism community. We have Autism Week, Autism Day, and Autism Month. And generally, this is a global movement that gives us an opportunity to celebrate the community, highlight challenges people face, advocate for legislation or funding or research or societal change. But I guess the view of many autistic people in the community is that while there might be well-meaning intentions, they really don't match in terms of impact. And a lot of the traditional messaging on autism awareness can actually often alienate autistic people. So the purpose of this event was really about thinking differently, to help maybe shift some of your views or stereotypes on autism and really amplify the strength and vibrance of autistic people and autistic culture right across the globe. When I started as CEO in Lexic, I remember our founder Nicholas saying, the mark of an ally is to really help amplify other voices and experiences. And so it's a real pleasure to be amplifying other voices and experiences today. And I'd like to kind of move on now and introduce you to our panel host, who's also going to be joined by 8 panelists. And our host today is Charlotte Velour. So Charlotte is an autistic woman herself. She's a former merchant banker. She is a corporate governance expert. She is the former chair of the Institute of Directors in the UK. And she's also the founder and chair of the Institute of Neurodiversity. And the Institute of Neurodiversity is a global member organization which intends to bring together neurodivergent people, their allies, for inclusion and advocacy across the globe. So Charlotte, you are very welcome. You are out of bed early like myself in the UK. Over to you to host the panel.
Thank you so much, Aidan, and thank you so much for the introduction for all of us. I will speak less than our panelists here because what we really want to hear is the voices. And thank you so much for everyone who's been joining us in what promises to be a really fascinating discussion. And as Aidan touched on, unlike other events, you will be hearing from actually autistic individuals from different countries, and across the day we're going to have many different countries involved with this, and we will all be sharing stories, insights, and experiences, which is what we can really learn a lot from. So I'm late diagnosed myself. I got diagnosed only at 52, which is 6 years ago. I'm originally from Denmark, hence the accent. And I've lived and worked in the UK for over 30 years. This event was special. I've known Sienna for a little while. She initiated this at 19-year-old neurodiversity advocate. She's done incredibly well with neurodiversity week, celebration week. And she's also written a book, The Spectrum Girl Survival Guide, and How to Grow Up Awesome and Autistic. I think what Sienna is doing in bringing everyone together, strongly supported by Aidan and Lexic, is just fantastic, as something we can all learn from. I'm a great believer in getting the younger generations to the table, and also try to do that in a boardroom, because I think there's a lot of knowledge there that us older people, which I'm not really allowed to say, but since I'm one, haven't got the same insights that the younger people do. So you wanted to put this event together mainly because almost everything you think you know about autism comes from non-autistic people. Thinking differently about autism will change this by putting our voices front and center to everything. So for the next hour and 15 minutes, we'll be focusing on addressing some of the deeply entrenched stereotypes and misconceptions about autism, including talking about why autism acceptance is important and the challenges to achieve it and lived experiences in different countries. At the end of our discussion, we'll open up to a 15-minute Q&A session, which Aidan will help us with and his team. But first, I'd like to introduce you to our fabulous panel. So today, you're going to hear from Faisal Azeem from Pakistan. He's an assistant professor of design and the media science department in University Karachi campus. I'm really sorry if I pronounce things wrongly. I'm doing my best. The next speaker, a panelist we have, is Raj Bhatt in India, who works at SAP Labs. Got Dr. Lutze Ireland from Australia, psychologist and design researcher, neurodiversity consultant and award-winning designer and author. We've got Beth Radulski from Australia, autism researcher and academic, project officer neurodiversity at La Trobe University and founder of Advocate Neurodiversity. We've got Faisal Rahman from Pakistan, founder of Ability Hub Pakistan, empowering education and workplaces through reforms, assessments, technology, and advocacy. We've got Asha Sridhar from India, quality associate at SAP Labs. We've got Juliana Suhindru Putra from Indonesia, lecturer of visual communication design at Pelita Harapan University in Takaran, Indonesia. And finally, but not least, Lala Stelun from Indonesia, neurodivergent advocate, illustrator, and founder of Bermuda Autism Indonesia. So to ensure this panel is neurodivergent friendly, I'll be asking each of the panelists specific questions on topics that are especially meaningful to them. This will ensure that each speaker has an equal opportunity to speak. As you may have noticed, this panel does have a majority of autistic women. Many people still think of autism as a male condition. There's quite a lot of work to be done to address this gender-based stereotyping. So I'm really glad that this panel is helping to dispel that by showing ourselves here. One of the themes of this panel is to address and challenge some of the stereotypes that hold the autistic community back. For example, autistic individuals are often seen as one-dimensional beings that are lacking in empathy, emotions, and incapable of having meaningful relationships. This is clearly not the case, as we're going to show you. There is also very different levels of awareness about autism in different countries. And this panel will give you insights from India, Pakistan, Australia, and Indonesia, which is extremely exciting. So if I can first turn to Fazli, what makes South Asian culture different from other parts of the world in context of autism awareness and self-advocacy?
Right. Thank you for inviting me here, Charlotte. I'll start by saying that very happy, very proud to represent my country and South Asia and speak here on this panel. In our part of the world, in South Asia, 25% of Earth's population lives here, statistically. So that's 1 in every 4 person is from South Asia. So it's a very large number of people. There's a lot of diversity. There's a lot of different cultures, different languages, And but generally, if you generally look at the entire region, certain countries have done quite better than others. There's excellent work happening in India, in Bangladesh, and generally moderate level work, and perhaps a lot more could be done in Pakistan and Sri Lanka and other countries of South Asia. One thing that we share is this sort of group thing, a group mentality. And what actually has happened is that people see difference as being a bad thing, right? So in the developed countries, difference is celebrated, individuality is celebrated, but in South Asia, generally the perceived social norm is to be same or to be similar or to kind of talk the same way, to look the same way. It's kind of like a groupthink mentality here, which is what has actually hampered awareness. It's hampered advocacy. There are obviously parents that are working with children who are non-verbal. There are a lot of children groups, advocacy groups, but there are almost no adult groups at all in South Asia, and that's quite a serious issue, because as I said, we represent nearly a quarter of the world's population, and there are very few self-advocates. You can literally count them on your hand. There's so few of them, and so that's something that has to be done, and a difference has to be made here. So that's my answer.
Absolutely. Maybe
it's a cultural thing.
Maybe we have a few of them here in these events.
Yes, we do actually.
Exactly. So definitely we should encourage a lot more like that. Thank you so much for this input and the insights of that perspective. I mean, again, through just sharing this, we can just learn so much of what goes on. Because sometimes, you know, in one country, I've seen from Denmark, it might be that we have, well, from other countries' perspective, are sort of luxury problems. But it's just the evolution of how you push things along in a country. And if we can learn from that, I'm hoping we could just push ourselves faster or push our countries faster. So I think progress by being together is really quite key. Thank you. So moving to Viraj. Viraj, what are your specific observations around autism in India with regards to autism awareness and self-advocacy?
Yes, as far as I know, in India, there until now there wasn't much awareness about autism, and those who are aware, they did have misconceptions about autism, and majority of the people who do advocacy themselves have one or at least one autistic person in the family, and that's all.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Thank you so much. There's always a lot of talk about autism awareness as opposed to autism acceptance. And although the word sounds similar, there are significant differences to that. So if I can now turn to Dr. Lutzer, please. Why do you find that autism acceptance is important?
I think it's very important to move from awareness to acceptance, because awareness is simply understanding that something exists, being aware of it, but acceptance is a series to actions. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, we can't hear you. I think this is better, yeah. We can hear you now better.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Excellent. So the point of acceptance is to be able to make specific actions every day that really include people, rather than just being aware that they exist. And one of the main reasons why autism acceptance is so important is because acceptance is good for you. And you, being whether you're listening and you're autistic or neurodistinct or neurotypical, the point of autism acceptance is enabling the incredible benefits that autistic and neurodistinct people can bring to different communities. Some of these benefits that we know from existing, for example, neurodiversity employment pilots, is an incredible innovation and productivity growth. Autistic people often have very common traits without stereotyping, including attention to detail, honesty, very strong moral code, strong problem-solving abilities, often a very quirky sense of humor and love of nature and animals. And these can really introduce a number of different perspectives, not just at work, but in people's personal lives. So what we know is often people who embrace autism, whether they are autistic or not, they can become better communicators, better leaders, and more confident in themselves and have a higher purpose to strive for.
Thank you so much for that input. That's something that again we just need to push out a lot more. So that's great to hear. Thank you, Lutza. We do need to see a lot more research that represents us and the actual issues that we, from our point of view, would like to have researched. This is certainly something that the Institute of Neurodiversity wants to bring to the table, us and our input into what research should we have. Historically, there's just been a lot of us being sort of observed and researched more as objects, and we definitely need to have actually autistic-led research. So moving to Beth, you are doing a PhD on neurodiversity that is studying discrimination against autistic people. Can you tell us a bit about your research?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a sociologist, and I suppose I'm coming to the topic of autism and neurodiversity from a different vantage point. Like you said, Charlotte, a lot of autism research studies autistic people as objects of research that are being studied from an external or neurotypical perspective. So I think I'm bringing a little bit of a different perspective through both the sociology lens and also as an autistic person. So that perspective, I suppose, is a lot of people think autism is an invisible disability, but I would argue we need to think really differently about this. I research autistic masking and camouflaging. So these are defined as the purposeful concealment of autistic traits and identity in order to pass as neurotypical or non-autistic. 3/4 of autistic people report masking and camouflaging consistently. So it's really important to understand why this is the case. Particularly because masking and camouflaging are linked to very poor quality of life outcomes for autistic people. So if such a vast majority of autistic people must conceal their autistic traits to avoid being noticed as autistic and avoid negative consequences, I'm basically posing the question, would autism be better understood as a visible neuro-minority group rather than an invisible developmental condition? So we'll give a bit of a content warning, but to give you an idea, masking has several negative developmental consequences. These would include anxiety, depression, burnout, fatigue, and minority stress. And I think this topic is of really great importance to the international community, given the strong links between discrimination in the absence of masking and camouflaging and the ethics and values of human rights and dignity, as well as access to education. So I'm working with like intersectional, queer, post-colonial, and feminist theory and trying to develop a conceptual understanding of how neurotypical privilege operates as an intersectional and systemic form of oppression, and how this relates to masking and camouflaging. So I'm really hopeful that this research can be used to inform cultural and policy reform and offer protections to autistic people so that they don't have to mask and camouflage to avoid discrimination. And also so that autistic people who don't want to mask or who cannot mask can be protected from attempts to assimilate them into mainstream neurotypical culture via treatments or any other means. So I hope that's a good elevator pitch summary.
No, I mean, that's fascinating. I love the word neurotypical privilege, and I think it's something that we haven't talked enough about. So I've spent an enormous amount of time talking about privileges when I'm trying to get diversity into the boardroom and to leadership groups. And what we are trying, of course, we're starting with getting women, there's 50-50 women, you know, and then all the other diversities we want. We are, of course, peeling away privileges from the people who are currently having the upper hand. And that will be the same as I think we gain our voice and our agency, is that the people who've had the ability to sort of speak for us and on top of us, maybe that was sort of a privilege, but certainly a privilege that neurotypicals are leading everything and what they do is what's right, and there's no right and wrong, right? So I think pointing out that there is a privilege there that needs to be looked at is incredibly important. Looking forward to you must share it with all of us when it comes out, but I'm sure you will. So, as I mentioned earlier, I got diagnosed really late, and it was really scary for me to go public about being autistic. I had worked for over 30 years by the time and worked pretty hard to have a career within banking. And the fear of discrimination against me professionally and personally was quite significant. I had a family meeting with my three young adult children to hear if they were okay with taking the risk of me going public and potentially lose the income that we are all living off. So it could also affect my children's prosperity. And they were very supportive because they know that it's something that's very important to me. I would so say that maybe the UK is sort of one of the easier countries to disclose in, but I think it still represents certain challenges. So I would love to hear from Faisal what the challenges were for you when you came across sort of, and what you experienced culturally after receiving your diagnosis. And I believe you were in Pakistan, where you lived at the time.
Well, I got my diagnosis while I was not in Pakistan, but eventually I have to tell my family. I wanted to because I was struggling quite a lot from my childhood, but I was pretty much good at masking, and I tried to overcome all these things in front of everyone. But when I said these things to people around me, they said, you look so normal, you travel, you talk to people openly, but we don't find any issue with that. And please don't come up with all these kind of things, because these are kind of excuses or labels people put on them. And especially if you go and say in the public, they take you as a you have some mental disability, or you are mentally not fit to work with, to go along with the people. So it's those are kind of the things I have to face quite a lot. I was quite for a very long time to speak about myself, about autism, about neurodiversity. But eventually, after breaking the ice, after discovering what I'm going through, it took me years to develop myself, to learn about neurodiversity myself, and to let people know about around me. So it takes a lot of courage to do that, to turn the odds and tell these things here. But still, I'm confident, and I'm happy to say, whoever I am, this is how I'm created. So there are challenges, but people are coming up.
Yeah, and that's fantastic, and well done being that courageous, because it's not easy for all of us. But hopefully, having access to these recordings, for example, after the event, helps sometimes if people are really not, getting it, to say maybe you want to look at a number of different autistic people from around the world and see who we are, and lose some of these misconceptions that we fit into one little box of this is what we look like and this is what we are like, because we are really just a vertical slice of society, right? And we are in all the different layers and come in all shapes and types and cultures and everything. And that's just not bad. It's not well understood, and I don't understand why it's not well understood, but this will hopefully help everybody get onto that. So thank you so much, and well done for the courage. And to everybody, well done for all of your courage. It's not easy. It makes us more resilient once we've done it, and we just need to be out there and face the fears, so to speak. So thank you. I'm moving to something slightly different. There is an increasing number of sort of famous people going public about being autistic. So we had Elon Musk, that most people know about, and through the history, there's been a number of other famous people that are coming out. So moving to Asa, have you met any famous individual with autism in the past, and if so, who might that be?
Thank you for the question, Charlotte, and thank you for having me here as a panelist. Really appreciate it. So when I was living in US, I received an invitation to attend an event in my college where I studied. So the famous individual autistic person I met was Dr. Temple Grandin. at the event. We watched her movie first, and then we saw her speech about her life and her challenges as an autistic person. After that, I had an opportunity to go and shake hands with her in person and talk to her about my strengths, skills, and which industry would be right for me. And she gave me a signed autograph after that and told me which industry to pursue.
That's great. Temple is great, and she really has pushed things forward. I watched the movie as well. And then later I was lucky enough to be on an advisory board with her in Canada, where we talk about what research we should be doing around autism. And even, you know, at her age now, she's still going strong. It's just amazing to see, and she has done a lot to push things forward as well.
Yes, and she has also written a lot of books and articles about which jobs are good for autistic people.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that insight. So I do wonder if all countries have well-known people disclosing their neurodiversity, or if something we should encourage more, because role models, as they could be to our community, just are extremely important to help change the current perception of us. So Juliana, have you come across any famous Indonesian people going public about being autistic? And if you haven't, why do you think that is?
Oh, are you asking me?
Yeah, Juliana.
Juliana? I don't know where Juliana is.
Is Juliana not here?
Yes, apologies, Charlotte. Juliana had to pull out at short notice, so she's not
sorry.
here today.
Okay, so I should have seen that. I missed that. Would Lala, would you mind addressing that?
Oh, about Indonesia. Wait, about autistics in Indonesia?
Yeah, just whether there have been any sort of famous, well-known Indonesian people talking about and going public about being autistic. And if there hasn't, why do you think that might be?
Well, I'm not particularly that famous yet in Indonesia because, to be honest, I have been open about being autistic for a very long time, since probably in 2014. But the thing about autism in Indonesia is that autism is still very stigmatized here, and people's ideas of autism is only relegated to children, and they're still very, the autism discussion is still very focused on adults. And even if there were autistics who were diagnosed when they were younger, they would be considered getting over autism as they grow up. So they just reject their autism essentially. And I am quite amazed that last year there were like a bunch of people coming out to me as autistic. I think it's because of the pandemic, and that is indeed very nice to hear. But unfortunately, there are still people who still want to talk about the adults of the autism, even in research. Like I got autistics who are also in the psychology field. They're psychology students, and they've admitted that when they want to study autistic adults, they were rejected by the supervisor, and the supervisor told them that they should study the autistic adults, not autistic adults, the parents instead. Wow. And so yeah, I don't think there are any that one famous autistic in Indonesia, unless they're probably super dependent on their parents, and their gimmick is that it's just them being autistic, and they don't really, I don't think they have that much agency to express their own emotions, but it's their parents or relatives that speak over them.
Wow.
And yeah, like there are several YouTubers and TikTokers who are like that. So autism self-advocacy in here is pretty young.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's the different stages we have in the different countries. I've realized after I went public, I had hundreds of emails, a number of them from other board members, and some of them I've known for years, who said to me, I'm autistic too, but I would never dare telling anyone. And that, I mean, that was a bit of a revelation to me, to be honest, because I thought that is very sad when we can't just bring our whole self to the table, right? That really should. So from your perspective, your life as an autistic raised in the US and Indonesia, what was that like?
Yeah, I think living in the US really affected my social abilities. The thing is, like a tiny trivia, but part of the reason my family moved to the US because they assumed that it's better for me to be raised there than over here. I'm not quite sure about the specifics. I think they trust the professionals in the US more. And even though in Indonesia, I was already diagnosed with autism when I was around 2 years old. And then in the US, once the psychologist or psychiatrist, I don't know, once they assessed me, they said that it's too early to tell if I was autistic, even though I was already 4 years old. I'm not sure. But I think I have benefited socializing in the US in the sense that that if I make a social mistake, they will tell me what's wrong, what social mistake I've made. So it's easy to supposedly like mask or navigate in social situations. Oh, I should note that in the US, I lived in Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh in the East Coast. So in the East Coast, there's a culture where you tell others if they do wrong. But once I moved back to Indonesia, I think it has negatively affected my social ability because in Indonesia, if you do something wrong, they don't do anything about it. They just leave you alone. And the thing is, because of that, I just don't know how to navigate through Indonesian society. So I just didn't mask essentially, and so I felt I was excluded, and without realizing, I was also eventually as an adult, I was manipulated into certain situations. So yeah, wait, let me read the comments. Yeah, that's the thing that the USA, yeah, they do use ABA, but the thing is they did not diagnose me as autistic in the States. So I don't think they registered ABA. I think my parents also considered to put me into special education, but they ended up mainstreaming me anyway.
Excellent. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for the comments that are coming in. And I completely agree. We don't make social mistakes. We just socialize in different ways. Different is not there's not a right and a wrong, and this is really what I'd love us to sort of just throw out there. A bit like when you visit other countries, you know there's different cultures, and you know how to adapt to that generally, or you would check it. If I visit Japan, for example, which is a different culture to the one in Denmark and in the UK, you know, I would make sure that I don't make mistakes there in terms of what their culture is like. But that doesn't mean that my culture is not equally important in a sense, right? But obviously when you visit other countries, you think about that. If we could think of different neurotypes in a similar way, that there's no right or wrong, there's simply different. That's all. And if we want to understand each other, that's fine. But that's a two-way thing. It's not just us fitting in on, you know, to other people. It's all of us meeting in the middle of the bridge, isn't it? So that we are respectful to each other and we all keep our dignity. I mean, if people started saying to me I was wrong with things, that would be quite upsetting. I mean, in Denmark, we're very direct with everything. But I didn't have someone say you're wrong. I've just had someone saying, oh, that's a bit different. But this was way before anyone even knew. I didn't know I was autistic. I knew I was different, but I guess I was lucky to be in a country where people flow a bit easier with everything. So I'm also a parent of neurodivergent children, and it was not very easy for me to navigate as a parent, even though I'm autistic myself. So I would love the opportunity, or would have loved then, to be able to ask and speak to other autistic young people about their experiences and insights, because when you are a diagnosed young person, it's very different to when you have no clue, like me, when I was young. And I'd like to just ask Fazli what you would wish that all parents of neurodiverse children knew in South Asian countries.
Right. So I'd just like to comment on a point that Lala made regarding the differences in culture, living in two different countries in the US and in Indonesia. And it's very similar to other countries in South Asia that even though we do share and a South Asian per se culture or kind of a way we think and do things, but there are individual differences in societies which sometimes lead to more inclusion and sometimes to less. Sometimes talking about the subject and sometimes just avoiding it like a taboo subject, right? One example I like to give is the current leader of Pakistan, the politician. I'm not going to name him. His granddaughter is on the autism spectrum. He owns the largest autism school in the country, but they had their names removed from their website because they didn't want to be associated with this. They thought, sadly, that it's going to sort of, cause a negative impression among the masses and so on. That's just one example, right? So again, why? And I thought about this, answering your question, that I believe it's to do with the lack of representation in the media. As in, I'm an adult on the spectrum, Faiza is an adult on the spectrum, but then where are the other adults, right? Because they haven't seen what an adult with autism looks like. There just aren't any out there representations, right? We've had excellent examples in India recently in their television and movies where they have represented adults on the spectrum, but that hasn't happened across in other countries, and it should happen more. As far as your specific question goes, and the question was regarding what do I wish that all parents of neurodiverse children knew in South Asian countries? Well, I wish that they were more accepting, and also they should know that denying experiences to their children, locking them up, not letting them go out there, these are going to deprive them of those valuable life experiences that will help them when they grow older. Because every child on the spectrum becomes an adult on the spectrum, right? They grow up. They're not going to remain children forever. And unless you do something now in terms of their socializing, helping them, accommodating them, facilitating them, asking them what they want, that is important. That is extremely important for the agency to come back in the person on the spectrum, right? They should decide. They should not be subservient to what society says. There's a whole saying in our society, like "Log kya kahenge," which translates to "What will people say?" or "What will society say?" Right? And I believe that's something that we, at least in South Asia, still have a lot to work against. To what will society say? Right? Overcoming that subject.
Yeah, thank you. I think what all over the world we have a lot of work to do in that. And just talking about all these adults. I mean, clearly. This is not for children only, which also has, mistakenly seemed to have been what people have thought. I mean, I spoke to a man in his early 30s who's ADHD, and said he went to his GP and said, "Oh, I think I'm ADHD. I would like to be diagnosed," when he was in his late 20s. And the GP literally laughed and said, "No, ADHD is only for children. That's not what you are." And it was like, what? And this is a medical person trained and, but still coming out with nonsense like that. And this is literally only 3 years ago, and it was in the UK. So there's a lot to do. I do feel there's a huge number of undiagnosed autistic people in the world. And maybe the numbers put forward around the current research that says 85% of us are unemployed, maybe that's just wrong. Because if literally everybody sort of, 40 and up started getting diagnosed. In some areas in the UK, we have more women than men getting diagnosed now. And again, so this misconception that there's, 4 to 1 men, women is really, as the adult autistic people come out, is really being shown that it's wrong. I did hear from a couple of scientists actually and medical people that say they didn't think we should get diagnosed if we didn't experience significant struggles or have additional disabilities. And I think, well, that really keeps all those statistics staying wrong, right? So I can't say I had significant struggles. I did have struggles, especially as a child. But the self-knowledge that I developed and the understanding certainly protects my mental health. And why are all the really old people? One day I might become dementia, for example, and then maybe my autism will be a lot more out there. And I looked into research, and apparently some of us with dementia are sitting in closed institutions, heavily sedated or in straitjackets because of our sensitivities. Anyway, sorry, I could go on, but yeah, thank you so much for that, for that insight. If you go to Viraj now, and you work at SAP Labs, and you've done really well. What do you think is the case in India with regards to unemployment for autistic people? And do you have any sort of feeling of what could be done about it?
You're asking that why is there so much unemployment among autistic people? Yeah, so
if you feel that is also the case in India.
Yes, and I think, in my opinion, that the main reason is they don't succeed. Not all, but most of them don't succeed in academics. And in my country, academic success is a very big deal. But as far as I know, this is slowly changing. And because the company I work for, that hired autistic candidate people for employment, and other companies are also following suit. So it is changing gradually. It is changing.
Was it difficult for you to get into a job? Did you yourself experience challenges with that?
No, not really. I was assessed in the beginning for the soft skills, but before that, I was working for is a dead end job I was working for.
Fantastic, excellent. Well done on that. So going back to talking a little bit more about autism acceptance, if I can move to Dr. Lutzer, in your experience, what are the biggest challenges to autism acceptance?
This is quite a complex question, and I think I'll try to answer it both in terms of work and personal life, as much as you can separate both of them. But one of the key themes that I think is present both personally and professionally for autism acceptance is that often there is a lot of division created between autistic and non-autistic people. And I really appreciated you kind of mentioning autism in the context of cultural differences and talking about this being a two-way street and people meeting in the middle of the bridge rather than trying to go and pull each other separate way. And I think on the back of that, often what happens is that we still lack a lot of awareness that enables most people to identify as autistic, unless their support needs are so high that it gets spotted quite early in childhood. So part of it is that most people don't understand what autism is, including the medical profession. But often, instead of saying even the medical profession and research doesn't quite understand it, what can we do about it? And that's why I appreciate so much what Beth is doing with more autistic-led research around the topic. We tend to tear down bridges sometimes. So I think we need to start building bridges and say, we need to catch up science, we need to catch up the medical field, and we need to catch up ourselves as well, because at the moment, from diagnosis to lack of access to different services, different reasonable accommodations, there are a lot of challenges. Most of all, for instance, at work, is often there is a lot of lack of real life education on how to implement neuro-inclusion in tangible, everyday sets. So even if people receive training or awareness, often these trainings really outline the differences rather than giving really practical examples and practical, tangible skills for people to be neuro-inclusive. And often what happens in the back of that, many autistic people who are already working, and I completely agree with the earlier note that there are a lot of undiagnosed autistic people in there. According to current statistics, probably about 80% of currently diagnosed autistics are under 20 years old. So that means that we can get another massive percentage from people who are adults. I think most of us in the panel, or quite a few of us, has been diagnosed as adults. And so we can really focus on providing more education and providing more two-way inclusion rather than trying to tone policing initiatives and trying to pinpoint whose fault, who's to blame, who's segregating who. So I think one of our biggest challenge is finding a common language, finding a number of common languages, including sign language, assisted communication, direct language, indirect language, language with high facial expressions, language without high facial expressions or looking people in the eye. So I think it's time to upskill in being able to translate.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for that input. I mean, I'm just seeing all the comments scrolling, and it's triggering a lot when we start talking, because a lot of us have had so many really unpleasant experiences, right? I mean, and having people talking about curing us or eliminating us from the gene pool, or I mean, it's just unacceptable in every way. But this is why we need to be together, come together strong, and raise our voices as we're doing here. That's super important, because that will give us that agency and weight in society that so far we haven't had. We've almost been like divided and conquered, right? And now we're not allowing that anymore. Also institutionalization. I mean, Peter, thank you so much for sharing. It's awful. We have a lot of it coming out in the press in the UK now, where especially autistic people have been institutionalized for like 20 years with no good reason behind it. And because obviously when we're autistic, it doesn't go away, right? Then it's like there's never a cure, so they will always have a reason to hold us locked down or locked in for the rest of our lives, which is a really scary thought. So I think, I mean, look to our parents. I mean, my father has passed, unfortunately, but his sister said to me just recently, she said, I'm pretty sure your father was autistic as well, Charlotte, because as a child, he definitely, you know, behave differently. If we all look to our parents, we might see the signs of you know, how genetically it's connected. We have many autistic people in my family. My brother has a son who, I mean, it's everywhere. And we will have grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren. It will continue, right? And I think that, again, idea that you can have it as a child and then you're cured later is just ridiculous. And we should be cognitively more developed as a human species to know that. So, but thank you so much for your input on this, Dr. Lutzer. I think we're going back to talking a little bit about masking. Imagine everybody masks, also neurotypicals, but they do it a lot more intuitively. Whilst I feel that autistic people probably have to learn it a bit more mechanically. I remember with my sister, I was always surprised to see her just being a different person in different settings. And I just watching her and thought, what's going on here? I really didn't get it. I could just be me. I mean, masking just doesn't work for me, but somehow I've managed to be in groups of people for work, because probably we were so many different, we probably 100 different nationalities in the dealing rooms I was in. And I think that helped. And that's why I talk about these different cultures. I really do struggle being just anything but who I am. So if I can go to Beth, because you recently published a research study exploring why autistic people mask. And what did the study find on that?
Well, it's a bit disturbing, so I'll give a bit of a content warning for pretty much every distressing content imaginable before I answer. But yeah, so my research study aimed to answer the question, what are the social drivers of autistic masking and camouflaging? So there's a relatively new field, but there's a lot of existing research on masking that shows that autistic people mask. It shows why autistic people mask, to avoid discrimination, bullying, social isolation, loss of professional and educational opportunities, physical attacks and violence. So my study kind of wanted to offer a new model and a theoretical framework to understand why these things are happening. So I call this framework the minority group model of neurodiversity. So my study found that camouflaging specifically requires assimilation with neurotypical traits and cultural norms. So that's why I now consider the neurotypical neurotype as a privileged social identity. So I suppose one of the key findings is, you know, firstly, masking and camouflaging are two different things. We usually think of them as one thing, but I think it's important to know the difference. So I defined masking as concealing autistic traits. So that might look like not finger flapping, not rocking, choosing not to stim, choosing not to disclose at a workplace or university. But on another level, there's camouflaging. And if you think about the concept of camouflage, it means blending in with your surroundings, right? So that might include making typical eye contact, changing your tone of voice to sound neurotypical, and so forth. So I think the distinction is really important. Yeah. Because it shows us two different things. Firstly, that the prevalence of masking shows us autistic traits are stigmatized and discriminated against. And secondly, the prevalence of camouflaging shows us that neurotypical traits are privileged. And that means that neurotypical privilege exists. So these two findings are really important because overall, the study found that the key drivers of masking are neurotypical majority group privilege, neurotypical invisibility. So this means privilege that a neurotypical person might experience by not experiencing the drive to stim, to not be visible as other in public. And finally, sadly, the last driver was neurotypical violence, so physical attacks on autistic people who unmask. So I think if we think historically and in contemporary society, there are a lot of examples of privileged norms for, race, ethnicity, gender, sexuality, or religion. And often in these hierarchies, anyone outside the norm is expected to assimilate if they want to participate in society, get jobs, be socially included. So I think it's really important that we use these past precedents, these huge social justice movements and research fields to understand neurodiversity intersectionality. Or intersectionally. So I think I'm running out of time. So the take-home message is that there may well be, and probably are, significant biological differences between autistic people and neurotypical people. But like with other realms of diversity, those biological differences do not and cannot fully explain social exclusion, lack of professional and social participation, and inequity. So we need to dig deeper and understand the role that neurotypical privilege plays in perpetuating poor outcomes for autistic people.
I completely agree. And I think, again, back to the neurotypical privilege, that is one of our key barriers. And I think that sounds like that's where your research is leading as well, to bring that out there. And then we have to be out and shout about it. So with your research in hand, we could all of us turn around to the wider public and say, have a look at this, because we can learn from each other. But then if we can all be that advocate that can turn around and just spread it much wider, we can have significant impact like that. So thank you so much for that. I mean, we are fighting for autism acceptance and inclusion all over the world and finding a number of barriers in all countries. And maybe this can clarify some of the barriers that we hadn't thought about. But an increasing number of adults are getting diagnosed, and they still prefer many people not to know. I have two groups, for example, that are all senior executives, autistic, one in the US, one in Europe, and they really don't want to tell anyone that they are autistic, but they have a need to speak to people. So there's this fear and shame, and what is it? It's very sad, and I'm hoping that by us coming together, we can support and protect each other in these kind of things. But if I could just move to Pfizer and ask why you're fighting for the inclusion of autism in what sounds like a non-cooperative system, potentially, especially if adults within your country might not be interested in getting that diagnosis, as your work specifically mostly revolves around the adult population.
Well, the thing is that when I got my diagnosis, I came up with the clue that what's next. So I was given a plan that I can be provided with my adjustments in my education system setting, with my workplace, with my employer. And it was a big relief for me when I exercised all these adjustments at my workplace, at my education, at my examination especially. So I felt myself like who actually I am. I felt my own potential. I given my 100% during all those adjustments. So the reason I am pushing people here is to know about themselves. We don't have any policies at the moment, but once we start asking the authorities, they will definitely start listening to us. But it's just a matter, we have to ask, we have to say about it. And I'm among the fortunate people, privileged ones, I must say, that I got diagnosis because I was overseas. In Pakistan, most of the people are self-diagnosed, and especially for autism, we don't have diagnosis available for adults here, and that's what we need to bring up. And other assessments for other neurotypical conditions are expensive, and not everyone can afford. Especially when, if you are adult, if you are working, if you're functioning, kind of normal, it's difficult for you to step ahead and say that you are autistic, you have special needs. So people get scared of getting bullied, to be accepted in the societal norms, and there are a lot of big taboos which we need to break up. And as I have experienced that kind of relief when I given by all my needs to be fulfilled, whether I'm exercising any legal process, whether I was exercising any kind of social situation. So I think it's the time to speak up. It's the time to have a voice about it. And if I'm like given by all these needs, if I have enjoyed all these things in a way to breathe, to live, I think it's the time for rest of the adult population in Pakistan to have this as well. And it's not easy for everyone to go abroad and have to live this experience. I think we can make this learning experience by our own selves. That's what I'm looking forward.
Well done, well done. There's a lot of work to do, but what you do is really, really important. What we all do is really important, and we just need to keep pushing it. It's the early days. It's like one of the potentially last human rights movements that we are running here at the grassroots levels, and we are all trailblazers. Even everybody who's part of us here, the fact that participants here, our audience, are interested, that means that they are also part of being a trailblazer in changing. And I deeply believe we can make, and that we already are making a significant impact on this. I mean, here as an undiagnosed child of the 60s, when the world knew so little, I found everything very difficult. And I got relentlessly bullied, beaten up by random people. I mean, I have 3 siblings, none of them got bullied. But I was like, I remember saying to my sister, do I have bully me on my forehead? Because I don't get. I was virtually silent till I was 12 because speaking was clearly very, very threatening, and it always went wrong. So I just went silent at a relatively young age. And it wasn't really for me until I started working in a bank that I came into myself, which I did at 18. And then I worked ever since. I have 40 years working anniversary this year, which is a bit scary. But then I actually could succeed because I could deliver in my own way. So I'd like to move just to Asha now to just ask, from her perspective, what support did you receive when you got diagnosed with autism?
Thank you for the question, Charlotte. So first, after living in Africa for 9 years and being born there, my family and I took a very hard decision to move to the US, as there it's a developed country. After moving to US with my aunt's help and support, she enrolled me in an American public school. So the school staff did a lot of tests, diagnostics, and assessments, and diagnosed me as having autism spectrum disorder and Asperger's syndrome. They said it wasn't very severe, so it's mild, nothing to worry about. So the school helped me out a lot by giving me speech therapy along with the speech therapist, and special education services help with the school until 6th standard. And then I was on my own after 6th standard with academics.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. That's really, really helpful. It's just so extremely interesting and rich in learning when we share our lived experiences, and it's just so much that we can learn from it. I mean, some autistic people have experiences at that good level of support and have grown up in a supportive and good environment where they could actually flourish. But this is just not what happens everywhere, in fact, is probably the exception, generally because the early education institutions just don't seem to know enough about how to teach a diverse group of children with different needs. They have like this middle of the road children, and the rest of us fall by the wayside, you know, and that's I mean, I was told that I was dumb in school throughout my schooling. So I had to grow up believing I was dumb, and it took me literally decades to realize that I do actually have a brain that I can use. Maybe I'm not so dumb, but of course today I heavily suffer from imposter syndrome and always think that people are going to find out that I'm not very intelligent actually with everything I do, and I'm 58. So these kind of things stick, and it's very, very damaging, and it really needs to stop. So if I can come back to Lala now and talk a little bit more about autism in Indonesia, and from your perspective, what is the situation of autism in Indonesia?
Oh, I think I've already explained before, and is that autism is currently still very stigmatized, and that the discussion is still very focused on autistic adults. Like even autistic adults themselves, even though they were diagnosed at a young age, when they grow up, they refuse and throw away their autism diagnosis and review the label. In fact, I've had someone who's interested in joining my self-advocacy group who wanted to be a member, but they still don't want to admit that they're autistic, even though they've been diagnosed with autism. And so they left the group. And nowadays, I'm not sure, like back in the 2010s, they do use autism as an insult, but I'm not sure why they use that word anyway, because it doesn't make sense. Like, for example, like if you do something on your own, like using a cell phone or reading your book, you'd be called autistic, even though there's been too many times where I wanted to interact with other people, but they're very busy with their phones. And I'm not sure about the autistic situation nowadays, but yeah, basically people still don't think autism doesn't exist. They don't even believe, not every Indonesian believes that mental health problems exist, and they would want to fix them by like putting them inside their house or trap them in cages, let alone autism. And also with autism, as I've interacted with more autistics in Indonesia, I've discovered that there are mainly two types of autistics that I've encountered. The first one is that they're very hypervigilant. So they're very good at observing other people's behaviors. And so they end up being good at masking and camouflaging, like what has been talked about before. But there's another type of autistic who, because of what I've said before, the nature of Indonesians not wanting to tell them if what they've done is considered different. So this type of autistic ends up not being excluded. They end up being excluded. They end up not learning life lessons, and so they end up not striving in life. For example, like they lack the ability to recognize boundaries and etc. So another thing that I've discovered when I've interacted with Indonesian autistics is that I feel like they're very affected by the culture compared to what I've seen online. So like I'm sorry, this may be controversial. It's okay.
Controversial.
It's unpopular of an opinion, but I've had autistics telling me that they somehow benefited from ABA. And I think it's because Indonesians have more of a drive to conform into society. So I feel like they felt like they've benefited from the therapy to conform into the society. But I still feel like ABA in Indonesia is bad, but not for the reasons that exist in the English speaking world. For me, I feel like it's just ineffective. And when I read about ABA, I feel like it's quite similar to education in Indonesia, where it's very rotary based, like you're supposed to like memorize what's taught to you and etc. So I think Indonesians should tackle autism acceptance through a different lens from English-speaking countries. So I think that hopefully with Pemuda Autisme Indonesia, we will find more solutions that's more tailored for Indonesian populations.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And thank you very much for being a bit controversial as well. This is always good to always challenge everything. I remember the first time I read about ABA, I used to run a dog training club, as you do when you're 19. We were training Rottweilers and we had 120 dogs for training. And when I read about ABA just, some 10 years ago, it just reminded me of dog training, right? I don't want to be disrespectful to the scientists that are obviously working in this space, but I don't think that human beings should be trained like dogs, right? Because we are more than that. We have minds that are working in much more deeper ways. And now I'm talking to people across the world who has had ABA and who are very upset with it like 20 years later, who had it in the 90s and early 2010s, and now are in their sort of late 20s, early 30s with what seems to be trauma around it and not knowing themselves. So I think it's something that we need more research on the long-term effects, and somehow we have avoided doing that research, and I certainly want to push for that research to be done, because we might as children be able to do what they want us to do, but if it means that our mental health goes as we grow up, that's a problem. That's a big problem, and we could have a wave coming on that. So I think there's a lot that can be done to improve the lives of neurodiverse people around the world, like education, business, social interactions, such as healthcare, the justice system, mental health, and that's just mentioning a few of them. They all have barriers for us to be able to participate in society fully as citizens of our countries. So if I could just go to Fazli, please, and hear from you what you feel needs to be done for neurodiverse children and adults in South Asian countries.
Well, generally, we've seen a trend that the parents are the first advocate for their children, but then the child grows up and the child does not learn to self-advocate.
Yeah.
The child is not trained or does not get that opportunity to practice what their parents are doing, because true independence will only happen when the respective voices of people who are neurodiverse, is heard. So that's one thing. The other thing that needs to happen, which hasn't happened in our part of the world yet, is that there's no critical mass. There are no groups of neurodiverse, right? It's only very recent. Even this word neurodiversity, it's only been, let's say, an year or so that I'm hearing it or seeing it, and it's not being used as commonly in our part of the world. It's very new here, right? As opposed to the Western so-called developed countries that have been using it for many years now, possibly because of the books that came out. So I would like more parents to come forward and also to help their children become self-advocates. And I would also encourage society to be more accepting of differences, because differences are what make us unique. And they actually push forward everything. They push forward innovation, developments, and they help make the world more inclusive.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for that. I mean, some really good points there. And I see some comments as well that are really agreeing with what you just said. And maybe if I can just turn to Viraj now and sort of building up what Fazli just said about what can be done for neurodiverse children and adults in South African, Asian countries. So Viraj, how does this relate to your experiences as an autistic person in India? What would have helped you?
I didn't get the question. Can you simplify it?
So in terms of what Fazli just said around the things that can be done with being, being more accepting of differences in the country, but also learning to self-advocate, and how that relates to your experiences as an autistic person in India. With that, did you have help with that in terms of self-advocating, and also feeling fully accepted for who you are?
I don't have answer for this question.
Okay, so maybe just some of your experiences as an autistic person in India and what you would have liked to have more of, maybe.
Okay, after my board examinations, I have been to a special school, and even there, the teachers weren't so professional. So I don't know.
So do you feel there's anything that could change to make your life easier?
Yeah,
Or
I
are you
don't.
okay? Okay, excellent. Sorry, it's I was just trying to relate it back into Fazli's comment on it. But in terms of you in the workplace, is there something in the workplace that you have felt could be making your day-to-day better and easier, that could change?
Yes, the co-workers are very cooperative. I don't have any complaint against them.
So maybe it's not so much complaints, but just ways where you see if you had some changes to your surroundings or to how you work, that you could be even more efficient at working.
Yes, the only complaint is that there is no enough sunlight, and without sunlight, I cannot. I'm not work productivity goes down, and there's too much artificial light. That's all.
And would that be easy to adjust to? Do you feel? Could your workplace adjust that easily?
Yes.
And have they done that for you?
Yes, sometimes, yes.
Okay, excellent. But maybe a bit more of that would be helpful for you.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Viraj. I think just different countries would have different barriers to acceptance. I mean, interestingly, when I've spoken to autistic people around the world, I found that we very quickly get into quite deep, meaningful conversation, and we seem to understand each other despite being from different cultures. There's some very similar things that we all experience across the world, and I definitely found commonalities across cultures every time. And I just wonder how we can transfer those solutions from one country to another. And Dr. Lutz, if I can bring you in here, again, what do you feel are the most important changes we can make to increase autism acceptance?
I think for autism acceptance, there is this really suitable saying that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So often we have a really good intention of what might be very suitable for autism acceptance or acceptance of neurodiversity in general. But very often what we need to do more of is also to do more research and understanding of the nuances of, for example, cultural differences, country level differences, local differences that exist. And that's why panels like this are so important, to make sure that we don't push for a one fit for all approach. So one of the most important things that we can do for autism acceptance is to involve more autistic voices and start to build co-design approaches where autistic people can actively participate in the policies, processes, and systems that get developed and designed in order to be more inclusive and accepting. And one of the most important things would be also to focus on people's strengths, both autistic people's strengths, neurodistinct people's strengths, neurotypical people's strengths, and start to create a culture of sharing through shooting more for universal design, meaning let's start to design processes, systems that suit the most amount of people, that everybody can benefit from, most people can benefit from, without making special modifications. And what I mean by that is if we start creating a culture of sharing, when people can freely share about their strengths and needs, and that being accepted and accommodated, then we don't have to segregate and divide in terms of autistic, dyslexic, neurotypical, and so on, because we all have some differences every single person, we are all different. And for that, what we also need to develop is more psychological safety. So other than the actual understanding and inclusion of others, we need to give ourselves and others permission as well to fail, to try things and do it wrong, and then course correct. So apologize, course correct, make reparations and move on, but we can't move forward without making some mistakes. And I think that also needs to be sometimes allowed for and even celebrated, because only then we can progress.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you very much. I'm mindful of time and we want to have some time for Q&A, so we might have to just cut short some of the questions we would have had. If I could just finish off one for Faisal, please, because I think it's important that we hear this. So how often do you hear discouraging remarks about the work you are doing in Pakistan?
Well, it was quite often, to be honest. Initially, when I start talking about self-advocacy, when I start even naming myself that I have got all these conditions and it affects me day-to-day basis, it was quite a turmoil. And still, it is slowly, gradually, doing things, but I'm seeing a brighter side now. More people are coming forward, especially parents of kids are stepping forward, and they want a better life for their children. So this is a big strength for me, that they are being advocate for their children at the moment, and more adults are coming forward, and it's giving me a bit strength to step ahead and to have my mission. And my autistic strength gives me a sense of justice always. I always speak for justice and inclusion. So I think this is not stopping me anyway, and it will lead to somewhere very big and something for every Pakistani we need it here. So I'm not listening to any negative side anymore.
Well done, well done. It takes again courage, and through that we do build resilience as we go along. So thank you so much. Thank you so much to all the panelists for your fantastic insights. I just want us to we have 10 minutes now where we could open for some questions and I haven't managed to moderate and look at the very rich conversation going on in the chats, which is fantastic. But Aidan is here to help me to pick out some questions from the chat, from our audience. And if Aidan, you want to come in and pose a question.
Yeah, thank you, Charlotte, and thank you to all the panelists for such an interesting discussion. A few kind of themes we see coming up in the chat, and I might start with the first question, which is in relation to the workplace. Charlotte, as you know, a lot of companies now are having autistic hiring programs, autistic recruitment programs. What advice would you give to employers if they're looking to hire autistic people? And I'll pose the question to you, and you can obviously pass around to the panel as appropriate as well.
So from my perspective, we need to change the whole culture to being fully accepting of differences. And we had that comment coming early on from one of our panelists. And I would like to pass it on to any panelist who would like to just bring in what they think employers should be doing, if anyone wants to comment on that. Yes, Dr. Lutzer.
I've been very fortunate to be able to design and co-design some large organizations, neurodiversity inclusion pilots. For example, at the Queensland Department of Education here in Australia, and also with Accenture's neurodiversity pilot in India. And one of the key successes we have seen is neurodistinct people who are already working there being actively employed and actively engaged with what a neurodiversity employment pilot should look like. So often neurodiversity employment pilots are the pointy end of where current employers are trying to open up the avenues for neurodiversity inclusion and acceptance. And that is a great thing to see. And especially when they are co-designed, they can result in incredible organizational capability lifts, such as increased inclusive behaviors, leadership capabilities, and so on. But one of the things that is still an opportunity to open up is to focus on neuro-inclusion first. In many ways, it's basically getting your house in order before you invite over the whole family for Thanksgiving or whatever culturally appropriate meals people have. Because based on statistics, if we have about 20% neurodistinct population, and even if just half of them are in employment, that means that your existing workforce, 10% of them is already neurodistinct. So I think dual pathways are very important. On one hand, by all means, we want more neuro-inclusion employment pilots and so on, because it's very important to be able to provide meaningful opportunities for employment for different disability groups, autistic people who are the most unemployed out of this. But it's even more important, or just as important, to get your house in order. So what about your existing 10% of workforce who are already there? They also would benefit from reasonable accommodations, inclusion, and acceptance. So starting with your already working people and creating a culture that is truly inclusive would benefit everyone who's already there and would create a much more suitable and welcoming environment for those who are about to join.
Thank you so much for that answer to that. That was really thorough. Thank you. So Aidan has sent another question around, which is related to terminology. I don't know how many hours or days or weeks I have spent discussing what is the right thing to say when we talk about, and I think it's quite scary for many people to like even start talking and think, oh, I'm going to say the wrong thing. What is this? What is that? My personal thing is to be as inclusive as possible and allowing people to make mistakes, obviously. But mistakes is just differences, isn't it? So the question is, what advice would you give in relation to terminology or saying the right thing? I have seen a lot of conversations online as well where people get jumped on for saying the wrong thing, and it kind of distracts us from the end goal where, you know, where we want full acceptance for all differences. We also have to sort of accept that there's differences in how we talk about it, but also everyone has to understand that if they say something that someone gets upset about, then we need to talk about that too, so everyone feels psychological safety in talking and making mistakes. I mean, I've been in equality all my life around all the different diversities, you know, operating in LGBTQ plus area, in ethnicities, and this, we make mistakes all the time, right? But if the intent is not bad, then I think we need to be okay with that. But I don't know if one of our panelists have a comment around advice in relation to terminology or saying the right thing.
I can say something if no one else.
Thank you. Everyone is scared to say anything. Then we have to just be open and accepting of saying the wrong thing as well as the right thing, right?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is that if you're there in good faith and you're trying to learn, that's the most important thing. I think people will have different preferences, but if someone expresses a preference to you, don't say, well, particularly if an autistic person says, I prefer identity first, or I prefer person first, or whatever their preference is, if you aren't autistic, don't correct them and assume that you know better. That would be my one piece of advice. Most autistic people prefer identity first. Research is starting to show that. The other common issue that gets brought up is, how do we use the language of neurodiversity? So the rule of thumb that I like to use is we use it similar to cultural diversity. Something can be neurodiverse, like society. A workplace can be neurodiverse the same way it can be culturally diverse, but a person usually isn't referred to as neurodiverse. You can call them a neurominority. Some people prefer neurodivergent, or just autistic or ADHD or whatever else. So that would be the quick summary, I think.
At the Institute, we've had this in the steering group. I mean, we have, maybe some members saying, I will not be called neurodivergent because that sounds like, something I don't like. And then we have people saying, oh, your websites are saying the wrong thing. You need to change all your 54 pages in the web. And that's like, this is really long. So we've sort of thought, could we just do NDs, and then people can, think whatever they want to, but it's hard to be all inclusive. But that's what we really want to be, so that everyone, as you said, however people want to identify and whatever people prefer is respected, and we handle everything with kindness. And if we use those, values, I think we can't go too wrong. Be respectful and be kind. There isn't always one truth. We all have our own truths, and I think we need to fully. We want the world to understand our truths. But between us, we also need to be kind, both to each other and to the world, when the world is trying to understand. Unless they are on purpose trying to insult us, then we can be less kind, potentially. But a final question here, which I think we have time for, is what advice would you give to someone who is thinking about sharing their stories or disclosing to others? Anything from the panelists? Maybe your own experience of disclosing and how it went. Yes, Isa?
Well, I must say that first, believe in yourself, because if you want to speak for yourself, you are giving yourself ease in your life, a better living, and you're creating a better world, not for your own self, for others as well. So just believe in this thing. And there is a lot of help available, and people are here to support you. There is a network of autistic people, neurodiverse people around the world. You can join them, and the support is here. And I think it's just believing in yourself and speaking the truth. Because once you accept yourself, other people will start accepting you. It's the self-acceptance, I think, must needed. And that's what I believe in.
Thank you so much for that. And also, we must remember that for all of us, or for many of us here, English is a second language. It certainly is for me. And, it doesn't come as natural as Danish would. And again, we need to be accepting of keeping simple language and understanding that small differences is not always helpful. We need to look at the bigger picture. Thank you so much. We are now at time. Thank you so much for all of your insights that you have shared so freely with us, all of our panelists. That's really, really appreciated. And the time you have put into it before this, thinking about what you want to say. Thank you so much to Aidan and the Lexic team to help us. And last but not least, thank you so much for all our delegates, all our audience to come in and join us and hopefully learn something and hopefully bring that learning out to the wider world. Have a really lovely day, evening, night, all of you. And I hope I'll see all of you again.
Thank you so much, Charlotte, for hosting. Thank you to all of our panelists as well. A virtual round of applause to me. If you haven't been reading chat, panelists, now is a nice time to open it, because you're getting lots of nice thank yous and nice comments from others. Just to kind of maybe wrap up, I think all I would say is, it's so important that any autism inclusion initiative, whether it's at Autism Month or another time of the year, really remembers and includes the perspectives of people that it's claiming to serve. So it's been a real pleasure listening to the panel today, your voices, your perspectives. And I suppose really to say as well, autistic culture does not just mean European and American white men working in global technology firms, and the cultural differences and the cultural perspectives are so important if we're to be inclusive to all. And look, awareness and acceptance for me doesn't just mean knowing about someone's existence or tolerating someone's existence. It means really accepting, really listening to those differences and acknowledging those differences can actually be a good thing, and different perspectives can really be a good thing. Yeah, so thank you so much, Charlotte, for your kind hosting this morning. Thank you so much to all of our panelists. Thank you, audience, for all of your nice comments in the chat. We will send you the recording afterwards and some links afterwards. And just a reminder, I don't know what time zone you're in, but we have 4 other panels taking place today. So please do sign up to the other panels as well. Charlotte, everybody, thank you so much. And Team Lexic, we will end the webinar there, please.